Future Educators. Today we'll be tackling another course for the Board Licensure Examination for Professional Teachers or BLEPT 2025. So my chosen course will be Child and Adolescent Literature. My name is Nicole Diaz and you can call me Teacher Nicole. So for today's video, I will be providing 10 item questions connecting to our course or to our chosen course, Child and Adolescent Literature. And all you have to do, if you have a spare time, take down notes, those information that needed. If you guys ready, let's get started. Number 1, children's literature, also known as blank, that includes stories, books, magazines, and poems created for young readers. The choices are letter A, juvenile literature, letter B, adult fiction, letter C, young adult literature, or letter D, folklore. So the correct answer in question number 1 will be letter A. That's correct. Letter A, juvenile literature. It is a correct answer because it's another term for the term children's literature. It encompasses all kinds of written and illustrated works specifically created for children, including stories, books, magazines, and poems. That's why the correct answer is letter A, juvenile literature.
Now let's go through to other incorrect choices and understand why they are incorrect. So let's start with letter B, adult fiction. So adult fiction, this refers to the literature intended for adult readers. It typically deals with mature themes, genres, and it is not designed typically or especially for children. Letter C, young adults literature. Meanwhile, they are somehow similar, but letter C, this is a literature aimed at teenagers and young adults, usually age around 12 to 20 years old. While they are related somehow, it is distinct from children's or juvenile literature, which target your children or younger children. That's why they are somehow related. So letter D consists of traditional stories and legends, myths passed down orally throughout generation. Although some folklore is adapted into children's literature, folklore itself is a broader category and does not exclusively created for children. That's why the correct answer in question number 1 is letter A.
Second question. Young adults literature is generally described as books written for an audience of what age range? Letter A, 21 to 29. Letter B, 12 to 20. Letter C, 5 to 12. Or letter D, 18 to 31. So the correct answer is letter B, 12 to 20 years old. This is the most accurate range for young adult literature. So books are generally written for readers aged 12 to 18 years old, but may extend to the age of 20 years old. So these books often explore themes of identity, friendship, love, pressure to someone else, and the transition from adolescent to adulthood. That's why the correct answer is letter B. Let's go ahead and understand why the other 3 choices are incorrect. So letter A, age 21 to 29 years old. So this age range is too old for young adult literature. People aged 21 to 29 years old, more on target of this is for new adult or adult fiction, which focuses on college life, careers, and adult relationship. So the focus of young adult literature is usually targets of younger demographic dealing with teen issues. That's why letter A is incorrect. Now let's hear letter C. So letter C, 5 to 12 years old. So this age group fits under the children's or middle grade literature, not young adult literature books. For this range, they are usually simpler in vocabulary, plots, or more on about elementary or to early middle school readers only. That's why letter C is also incorrect. Letter D, age 18 to 31. So, while 18 years old might be still around or might still read young adults literature, the age range of 18 to 31 years old mostly falls under new adult or adult fiction, similar to letter A, 21 to 29 years old. Literature for this age group typically involves more mature, real-life challenges beyond the scope of teen-focused young adult books. That's why this is also incorrect. Number 3, which of the following is the real name of Lewis Carroll? The choices are letter A, Samuel L. Clemens,
Letter B,
Charles Dodgson, letter C, L. Frank Baum,
and letter D,
P. L.
Travers.
The correct answer in question number 3 is letter B, Charles Dodgson. So, Charles Ludwig Dodgson is the real name of Lewis Carroll, the author of Alice's Adventure in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. Lewis Carroll was his pen name. That's why the correct answer is letter B, Charles Dodgson. Now, let's go ahead and understand the other incorrect choices. Let's start with letter A, Samuel L. Clemens. So, this is the real name of Mark Twain, the author of The Adventure of Tom Sawyer and Adventure of Finn. He is not Lewis Carroll.
Letter C,
L. Frank Baum. This is the real name of the author of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. He is a different author, not connected to Lewis Carroll. And letter D, P. L. Travers. This is the pen name of Helen Lyndon Gough, who wrote the Mary Poppins series. Question number 4. In what era did the stories of the Trojan War, Adventure of Hercules, and Pandora's Box flourish? The choices are letter A, Renaissance, letter B, Classical, letter C, Middle Age, or letter D, between World War I and World War II. So the correct answer is letter B, Classical. So the said stories like Trojan Wars, Adventure of Hercules, and many more, these are myths that came from ancient Greece, which is part of the classical era, roughly around 4th century BCE. So this is when an epic stories like those said stories, Trojan Wars, Hercules, and Pandora's Box were developed and passed down orally and written form. Why the other 3 choices are incorrect? Let's start with letter A, Renaissance. So Renaissance around 14th to 17th century. It was a period of renewed interest in classical learning, including Greek and Roman mythology. But the mythology themselves did not originate or flourish during this time or during Renaissance. They were revived, not born. That's why they are letter A, Renaissance. It's not the correct answer. So letter C, Middle Age. So Middle Age around 5th to 15th century were dominated by religious and feudal themes in Europe, not Greece. So classical myths were preserved in some texts, yes, but not actively created or widely flourished during this time of Middle Age. And letter D, between World War I and World War II. So this modern period around 1918 to 1939 is far removed from the ancient mythology. While myth-inspired literature or reinterpretation may have been written then, the original stories did not flourish during this era. Question number 5. What is the main purpose of children's literature? Letter A,
entertain or instruct young people.
letter B, persuade people, letter C, tell stories about important events in the past, or letter D, pass on histories. The correct answer is to entertain or instruct young people. So, this is the main purpose of children's literature because these stories often contain moral lessons, life skills, and imaginative elements that both engage children and help them learn about the world around them. I'll explain the rest of the choices why they are incorrect. So let's start with letter B. Letter B, persuade people. While some books may include persuasive elements, the primary goal of children's literature is not to persuade, but to entertain young readers, educate, and develop imagination and values. That's why the correct answer is letter A. Letter C, tell stories about important events in the past. So this is more about aligned with historical fiction or non-fiction. Although some children's books do include historical content, it's not the central purpose of children's literature overall. And letter D, pass on histories. So passing on histories is the role of history books or oral tradition, not the main focus of children's literature. Children's book may include historical reference, but the core aim of children's literature is to educate and entertain. Number 6, National Children's Book Day is proclaimed on which date in the Philippines? The choices are letter A, April 2, 1967, letter B, November 20, 1954, letter C, October 17, 1995, or letter D, July 17, 1984. So the correct answer in question number 6 will be letter D, July 17, 1984. The first official National Children's Book Day in the Philippines was celebrated on July 17, 1984, the third Tuesday of July. This day honors the publication of Jose Rizal's The Monkey and the Turtle. It was Oriental recorded in July 1889, a foundation event in the Filipino children's literature. That's why the correct answer is letter D. Now let's go ahead and I'll explain the other choices why they are incorrect. Letter A, April 2, 1967, it called International Children's Book Day. This day marks the birthday of Hans Christian Andersen and has been celebrated worldwide since 1967. Letter B, November 20, 1954. It is about World's Children's Day. So, proclaimed by the United Nations in 1954, this day promotes child welfare and rights globally. It often includes storytelling events, but it's not specifically a literary holiday in the Philippines. Letter C, October 17, 1995. It's the start of National Reading Month in the Philippines. So, beginning in 1995, the Philippine Department of Education launched National Reading Month to promote literacy among youth throughout October. Still, it is not an official date of National Children's Book Day. Question number 7. Who formulated the notion that minds of the young children were similar to blank slate, waiting to be filled up? The choices are letter A, John Dewberry, letter B, Grimm, letter C, Locke, and letter D, Wilhelm. The correct answer in question number 7 is letter C, Locke. So John Locke, a 17th century philosopher, formulated the concept of tabula rasa. In Latin term, it's for blank slate. He believed that children's mind start as blank slate and knowledge comes from experience and sensory input. And try to understand the other choices. So let's start with letter A, John Dewberry. So John Dewberry is known as the father of children's literature for publishing early children's book, but he did not develop the idea of the mind as a blank slate. Letter B, Grimm. So Grimm, the brother Grimm, collected and published folktales, but did not propose the blank slate theory. And letter D, Wilhelm. So, Wilhelm is one of the brothers of Grimm. Is known for his fairy tales. Question number 8. Which period did books shows bad children to inevitably suffer and be punished? The choices are letter A, Renaissance, letter B, Classical World, letter C, the 18th and early 19th century, or letter D, Middle Ages. So the correct answer is letter C, the 18th and early 19th century. This is the correct answer because this period, particularly in 18th to early 19th century literature, is known for didactic children's book that emphasize strict moral lessons. Books often portray bad children as inevitable punishment or suffering consequences to teach proper behavior. So this reflects the influence of Puritan and Victorian values during 18th to 19th century. So where moral instruction was the central goal of the political dynasty before. Now, I'll explain the other three choices why they are incorrect. Let's start with letter A. So, letter A, Renaissance. During Renaissance, literature began to explore humanism and individualism. While disciplines was important, books did not properly or primarily focus on punishment as an inevitable outcome for bad children. That's why it is incorrect. Next is letter B, classical world. So in the classical era or ancient Greece and Rome, stories often focus on heroes, methodology, and gods with moral lessons, but not specifically on punishing bad children as the theme in children's literature. That's why it's also incorrect. And letter D, Middle Ages. So Middle Ages focus more on religious instruction and tales, but children's literature as a distinct genre was not prominent during this time. So punishment was part of the moral teaching, but not the main genre or plot when it comes to children's stories. Question number 9. Modern children's literature is classified into two different ways. The choices are letter A, genre or the intended age of the reader. Letter B, length of the book or the number of illustration. Letter C, language complexity or author's nationality. Or letter D, printing quality or publisher size. So the correct answer in question number 9 will be letter A, genre or the intended age of the reader. Children's literature is commonly classified by genre, such as fantasy, adventure, or picture books, and by the intended age group of the reader like toddlers, middle grade, or young adults. That's why the correct answer is letter A. Why the other three remaining choices are incorrect. Let's start with letter B, length of the book or the number of illustration. So, book length and illustration are different. So, it might be somehow different from each books. So, but these are not the primary way of classifying children's literature in a formal sense. That's why letter B is incorrect. Letter C, language complexity or author's nationality. So, language complexity might affect the readability of a children, and author's nationality might influence the cultural terms or themes, but these are not standard classification method used in modern children's literature. And letter D, printing quality or publisher size. So letter D, printing quality and publisher size relate to production, not literary classification of a literature. Alright, down to the final question. Question number 10. In the Philippines during Spanish colonization, most reading materials for children was imported from Europe. One book popular then was entitled El Amigo de los Niños, which included the now famous fable of Blanc that Rizal's mother told to him when he was a child. The choices are letter A, The Mud and the Plane. Letter B, Si Pagong and Si Matching. Letter C, Ibong Adarna. And letter D, Ang Alamat ng Pinya. So, the correct answer is letter A, The Moth and the Flame. This is a fable that Rizal recounted in his memoirs, which was read to him by his mother when he was young. So the story is about a young moth that drawn to a flame and getting bored later on, left a deep impression on Rizal. So while the story itself is much older than Rizal, it was included as the popular Spanish book and El Migo de los Niños, widely circulated during the colonial era. So that's why it is a correct answer. Now, I'll try to explain why the other choices are incorrect. So let's start with letter B, Si Pagong at Si Matsing. So
It isn't incorrect, but it is well known in the Philippines. This is a traditional Filipino fable about a turtle and a monkey. Rizal helped preserve the story by illustrating it, but it is not the one that his mother read to him from El Amigos de los Niños. So it is a separate tale rooted alone in the Philippines folklore, not imported in European literature. That's why it's incorrect. Next, letter C, Ibong Adarna. So, Ibong Adarna, it is a culturally significant to the Philippines. It is a famous Filipino epic poem. Ibong Adarna tells of magical birds and prince. It is a part of local folklore and school literature. But it is not a fable and was not part of El Amigo de los Niños. And letter D, ang alamat ng pinya. So, it is also incorrect but familiar to every Filipino children. So, this is a Filipino legend or alamat explaining the origin of the pineapple. And we're done to our 10-item questions. I hope you learned something and took down notes for your references. Once again, I'm Teacher Nicole. Until we meet again.